Hello everyone, my name is Luke Tracy Nelson, and my individual video is on the history of malware, and I have a short demonstration on an open source malware scanner in Linux as well. I'm going to start off with a disclaimer. This video is solely for educational purposes, and I am not to be liable for any damages that could be caused by using these demonstrations as seen in this video. With that, we'll get started with the history of malware. So the beginnings of malware. We see in 1966 the first concept of a program that could reproduce and spread itself throughout a system. This was theorized by John von Neumann, who was a mathematician and as well a Manhattan Project contributor, and it was actually published after his death. In 1971, we see the creeper worm developed by Bob Thomas and Ray Tomlinson. It was designed to move between computers on ARPANET, which was designed to copy itself from one computer to another. And it was not actually malicious. And as we know, the ARPANET was a precursor to the internet at that time. In 1982, we see the ELK cloner virus developed by Rich Skrenta, who I believe was 15 at the time. It was the first known virus for Apple computers. It was a boot sector virus that would infect a computer, then infect any floppy disk that was inserted into that computer. It could inadvertently write or some floppy disks though, so it wasn't perfect. But yeah, in 1982, which is pretty crazy. In 1986, we see the brain virus developed by brothers Amjad and Basit. It was considered to be the first virus for the IBM PC, and it was initially developed to prevent copyright infringement. And they actually put their phone number, as you can see in the picture here, in the virus, and they ended up getting lots and lots of calls because it spread more than they thought that it would. And in 1988, we see the Morris worm, which is created by MIT student Robert Morris. He initially created it as a proof of concept, but it quickly spread to 10% of all networked computers at the time, which was numbered at around 60,000 computers. So infected approximately 6,000 computers in 1988. And he did it by exploiting a backdoor on Unix. And I believe he was arrested on this, which could potentially make him the first cyber criminal. In 1999, we see the Melissa worm, which was spread by email and infected an estimated 1 million email accounts and at least 100,000 workplace computers and resulted in slowdowns at over 300 organizations. So it was also quite widespread. And you see, yeah, the pictures of the old viruses there. Further developments in 2000, we see the I Love You virus developed by Onel de Guzman. He was unable to afford dial-up service, so he built a macro virus worm to steal people's passwords. It is pretty significant as it can be considered the first outright piece of malware by some, and it's definitely an early example of social engineering and phishing. As you can see here, he sent what looked like love letters and they're actual viruses. And he actually briefly shut down the UK Parliament's computer system. No files were ever charged due to contradictions with local laws. The My Doom worm in 2004 was used to email to self-replicate and infect systems. Once established, it would hijack the victim computer to email out more copies of itself. So it kind of spread in that way. And My Doom spam accounted for 25% of all emails sent worldwide at one point, a record that stands today. Also used infected computers as a botnet to launch DDoS attacks as well. And the threat actors were actually never caught or even identified. In 2007, we see the Zeus virus which infected computers via phishing and drive-by downloads. It was a Trojan-style virus that can deliver different types of malicious software. The source code was actually leaked in 2011 as well. In 2013, we see the CryptoLocker ransomware, which is one of the first instances of ransomware. It was distributed through rogue botnets that were captured by the Zeus virus, actually. And the CryptoLocker systematically encrypts data on infected PCs. So if they're in a local network, any shared resources are targeted first. The attackers at the time, they requested to Bitcoin, which was only worth about $700 each at the time. And in 2014, we see the Emotet Trojan, which is a polymorphic malware that made it difficult to fully eradicate as it slightly altered its code every time that it reproduced. It's pretty clever there. It persisted as a modular program used to deliver other forms of malware, and it was shared through phishing. And in 2016, we see the Mirai botnet, which is created by college student Paras Jha. It took over a massive number of mostly IoT-enabled CCTV cameras that had weak security. As we know, IoT device security is a problem still today, and it will continue to be a problem. It was initially meant to target gaming service for DOS attacks, and he ended up going for a DNS provider and cut off huge amounts of the US Eastern Seaboard from the internet for almost a whole day. So it actually became much more effective than he even intended. And that brings us to the modern day. In 2017, where we start to see more instances of cyber espionage that existed before then, but it's becoming more prevalent. And as we know, I think we all know now, nation state actors are kind of one of your biggest concerns when you're talking about cybersecurity. So yeah, and in 2017, we see the Petya ransomware, which is modified into NotPetya, which looks like ransomware, but actually destroyed user data, even if ransom was paid. It's believed to be tied to Russian intelligence, who possibly used it to attack Ukraine. In the same year, we see WannaCry ransomware worm, which strikes multiple high-profile targets in Europe, namely the UK's National Health Service. It was included in that. WannaCry may be connected to adversarial sectors of North Korea, and both were enabled by a Windows exploit called Eternal Blue, and that was discovered by the NSA here in the US. So um, several government agencies involved in all of these attacks, and whether they developed them or discovered vulnerabilities, that kind of thing. And we see that happening more and more now. And then in 2019, we see ransomware as a service. So as time is going on, we're kind of seeing a lower number of actual instances of successful ransomware attacks. But that's because hackers are targeting more high-profile targets so they can cause greater damages and have a greater financial gain. For example, there was one company in the previous company I worked for. There was one company in our peer group who got hit with ransomware, and they ended up paying, I believe it was close to $2 million for that to get their data back. So it is a major problem, obviously, if you get hit with ransomware. And that's why we see cyber insurance now that also insures you up to a certain amount if you have to pay out as well. But yeah, in 2019, we started to see ransomware as a service, which is a service offered on the dark web, basically a plug and play where professional hackers will engage in ransomware attacks for a fee. So this could be used by mercenary groups or really anyone with the desire and money. So you don't even need to have actual technical experience now. And these are a couple examples of how a ransomware as a service ecosystem can work. So yeah, basically they put in their request, and there's somebody that works with the person requesting ransomware services to see what they actually want, and the hackers go out and do their thing, and there's negotiation and all the things like that. So pretty crazy, and I believe some even have like help desk support, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, and lastly, there's something that always to be considered human error. It's still as prevalent as ever. That's why phishing, social engineering still works. We need continued education in the workplace that's necessary so that employees are aware of current threats and what to look for, and also to cultivate a security first culture. So this can be done through either training, through videos and things like that, and also phishing simulations. Um, which could be a non-malicious link. And if they click it, there's an alert sent to the system administrators, and they follow up with the user then. And that is it for my presentation, and we will go to my demonstration. So I have this on my Kali box on VirtualBox here. We're just going to go in here. We're going to clear what I was testing earlier. So we are using the Linux Malware Detector, and there's a couple examples of commands here. So we'll start with maldet help. Basically, lots of different commands that you can run with this. You can execute operations in the background. You can scan all files in a path. You can monitor certain users or paths as well. You can specifically quarantine of malware, a specific file. You can set execution under specified user, everything like that. And we have the configuration file here. You can configure email alerts, although I was not able to get those to work earlier. And you can also configure quarantine. So when you're scanning, you can have it automatically quarantine any hits that it detects for you. Anyway, so we are going to initially download just something benign. So I have up here NIST Special Publication 800-53 PDF. So we'll just go ahead and download this. Save that. Oh yeah, I had one from testing earlier. And then we'll go ahead and run the appropriate command here. So scanning just the home Kali downloads directory. I'm also running as root. I was not able to get it to properly run even with sudo earlier, so running as root, even though it's not really recommended practice. And you can see it go here in Linux Malware Detect. It's loading signatures and everything like that, scanning the directory and scan the files. And it was benign. It was just a PDF download from NIST, so no hits there. And then here we see where you can view the report named very specifically by time. So you can look at which report that you want. And then, so it didn't have a false positive there, anything like that. Then we'll go and download this. This is the iCar test malware file. Some of you might be familiar with this. Basically, will show as malware in most, or should be any system, but it's not actually malicious, not going to do anything harmful to your computer. So we'll go ahead and save that. So now that's in the directory, in the downloads directory. And then all we need to do is just rerun this again. And scanning, and as you can see there, we got one hit on that file. Scan completed. Now it hits one. And scan report was saved here. And yeah, I do have it where it should be sending the email alert. I was not able to get that earlier. But we can go ahead and see the alert here. So you can see the host, Kali, when it was started, when it ended, only lasted 3 seconds, this one, because it's a pretty small directory. And we got one hit, and you can see it's the car file, and it show you which directory that it put it in. So there's a quarantine directory that MalDetect creates for you. So we can have it, oops, we can go to the directory here. And you can see my test files from earlier, but we could also see the exact file. And we can actually do .info, and it will show you the information about the malware file here. So path and everything. all the relevant information that one might need. And yeah, that is about it for me. Thank you for watching.